Hey guys, JK Wargames, and today we're doing a review for the Battle for Ramadi, the final assault on the city, 22nd to the 28th of December 2015. This is a solitaire war game. Game design is by Jay Ward and it's published by Tiny Battle Publishing. So in this game, you take control of the ISF forces and you are battling against the ISIS to take control of the city. This is the rulebook. As with all Tiny Battle rulebooks, it's full colour, really easily explained. The rules are about 8 pages long, and then you get designer notes and a history of the battle. And also you've got counter references, which is a really nice touch in there. So, nice simple rulebook. We then get our player map. So if I come over here, this is the player map and it looks really, really well done. So basically, this is the city and the player has to take control of the government complex and try and control these other cities because main hex victory point hexes. So the player cannot win without capturing the government complex, but these other, like the hospital, Grand Mosque, the stadium, Ramadi East Station, and the Justice Compound, they all give the player 5 victory points. And if a player controls one of these urban hexes, they get 1 victory point. But the difference in this game is that each hex you have to fight over, which I thought was really, really cool. So you roll to see how many operations you get, and then you get one of these ops counters. So you have to fight for control of a hex. So if we put an operation here, that means that these guys are fighting to gain control of this hex. And if you win the battle, which I'll show in a minute, if you win the fight in that hex, then one of your units can move into there. And you can then start scoring victory points. But you have to have a line of communication. So if you controlled this East Station, you need all hexes back to your deployment zone controlled. If you had a gap like this, then you were cut off and you would lose those 5 victory points. So you have to keep a line of communication from your deployment zone, which is these red hexes, all the way to the objective. So in the game, you get different units. So you have police, and the artwork on these are fantastic. So you get police, you get EB units, you get 2 different army types. So you get a vehicle and you get a standard army counter, and then you get CTS counters. So that is your main force. And then, if we come over here, we get an operations board, which I'll just go like that. So, excuse the Lego, that's my daughter's Lego. So, this is the operations board, and here we have a game turn track, we have victory points for the ISIS, and victory points for the ISF, and also casualty points. Now, the interesting thing is these boxes. These are ground assets, and the player has ground assets available to them. So if you look here, we have an artillery, a tank, a bridge, breacher, and an SF. And basically these ground assets help the player to try and gain control of a hex. But once one of these are used, they are flipped. Once one of these are used, they cannot be used again until the end of the next turn. So the way that I do that, if I was on turn 1 and I use this on turn 1, it then can't come in until turn 3 and I place it there. So also we get air support units. So we got a British bomber, an American bomber, and we also get drones, which I'll show you how you use them in a bit. So Then we get our enemy ISIS forces. Now, these are drawn blindly, and this what I love about this game. You never know what you're going to be up against. So the ISIS have IEDs, and you bring them out like that, and then they'll flip. ISIS forces, and these all range differently. So that's a local SF, they have 3. And then an asset, which this one is a VB IED, but there's different kinds. There's an air defense one. And if you draw a attack asset, then the ISIS will attack you after the main fights for hexes. So the player draws these blindly, so I'll show you that now. So the neat thing about Tiny Battle publishing is that the player aid is on the back of the rulebook, so you know it's not taking up much footprint. You can just lay this in front of your game. I've got plexi on this just to keep the map flat and the player chart flat, and then you've got everything you need here. So what the player does is they roll 1d6. So let's do that now. I'll roll 1d6 and I've rolled a 5. At the moment, at the start of the game, we have 0 to 10 casualties. On a 5, that means we can conduct up to 5 operations. Now you don't have to do 5 operations, but you need to gain victory. So we would take a few of these ops counters. We'd take 5 of them if we wanted and place them in adjacent hexes to our forces. So let's just say these guys are going to go for the bridge. Let's just go through that example. So we draw an IED, an ISIS, and an asset counter, and you keep them down like that, and you would draw 3 of these for each operation going on. So let's just place them there. But this is where the player has a decision now. So we have 2 units stacked in a hex, and they can only ever be 2 units stacked. And I have to make one of these my point unit. So I'll make the 4 my point unit, because if I made the 3, this 4 cannot be added to our attack. He can never add more than what this lead counter does. So we would add up a 4 and a 3 to get our rating. So we have a 7. Our attack rating is 7, but we can then bring in an asset. So if I wanted to, if this is available, I could bring in a tank to add 3 on top of my 7. So we've got 10 now. Then what you do is you reveal the ISIS counters. So they have a 3 with an IED. They have a 3 with local SF, so that's 6. And then they have a 2. So they've got 8. Now, what you do is you roll a d6 for each side. So we said we had 7, 8, 9, 10. So we roll a d6 and add 10 to it. So 10, 11, 12, 13. So we have 13. And then the ISIS add their 6, 7, 8. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So then you work out the difference. So the difference is 0 in this occasion. And that's when you come back to your player aid, and you can see on a 0, the ISIS have defeated us. And we will take a casualty on a 3 or greater. So you roll a dice, and we rolled a 2, so we wouldn't take a casualty. Now, because the ISIS won that round, that fight, they gain a victory point. If they cause a casualty, they would gain another victory point, and we would adjust our casualties up here. So let's say we did win that, and we had a difference of 2. We would win control, and then we would get a casualty on a 4 or greater. So let's say we rolled a 2, we didn't take a casualty. These guys are removed and put back into their pots, and then this ops counter is moved, and I can move my lead unit, or one of the units, into that hex. So I've now gained control of that hex, and the asset won't come back until turn 3. Okay, so we wouldn't gain any victory points for that because that is a bridge. It's not an urban hex. But if we got here, we would gain a victory point for that being an urban hex. Now, after all operations have been completed, if an ISIS attack has been drawn, then they now will attack. Now, they have a priority. They will attack these no zone of control markers. So if we had this guy here and we couldn't move these guys up yet, we place this here because we still technically control that, but we don't have many of our forces there. So the priority is for that attack to attack one of these first. And if you had more than one, you just roll a dice to decide what one is attacked, and that is removed. Now, if that's removed, it's removed automatically. We've lost our line of control. So we'd lose a victory point because that's an urban hex. The victory point track would go down. Now, the reason drones are included, and this is an optional rule, you can put the drone there and then actually conduct combat. So you'd roll your d6 and add 2, which is 4. They would have 3, and 3 is 6. So they would win and it would still go. But it gives you a chance to stop that happening. So that is how that works. And then that drone is expended and put in the box, and then it will be ready again in 2 turns. So that's the basics of how the game works. You're going to decide what is going to help me. If I use it now, I have to wait 2 turns for it to come back in, so it's a choice. And to achieve victory, you must have the government complex, and you must have more victory points than the ISIS. Now, this is a tough game in my opinion. I've played 3 times and lost twice and won once. So if we just come here to the board a bit closer, let's zoom in. This government complex gives us 5 victory points. Now if we happen to have a guy in here and we had guys laid out like this, and we had none of these markers, then the ISIS attack will attack one of these infantry or counters which would have taken place where the operation was. So if an operation was conducted here, they will attack one of these and it will be the lowest. So the lowest still gets a chance to defend himself. And let's just say this guy got removed. That has broken our line of communication, and we'd lose 5 points for the government complex. Because even though our guy's there, we don't score the points for it because the line is broken. So this is a really neat game. I've really been enjoying it. For 30 quid UK, and I think it's about probably $28 American, you can't go wrong. It's not a massive footprint. The rules are really good. Counters are beautiful, big counters, big 1-inch counters. The map's beautiful. There's not much more I can say really. I'm not normally into kind of modern combat too much, but this is a gem of a game. This is really good. So if you like this one, guys, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.